Thanks, Cahirlock, and thank you, Minister. I have 3 questions. Minister, since becoming a public representative, I've been contacted time and time again by victims and survivors of domestic abuse. I'm sure you have too. I'm sure everyone in this chamber has. And I'm sorry to report that I've also been confronted time and time again with the inadequacies of the State's response. As the only female TD in Cork, I feel obliged to raise this issue again. The cold, hard truth is that the restrictions of the COVID-19 emergency leave women, children and men at increased risk of domestic abuse. It is imperative that the Government provide the proper assistance in these instances. Organisations such as West Cork Women Against Domestic Violence and Safe Ireland do phenomenal work in supporting and advocating on behalf of victims and survivors. The Government should listen to these organisations that respond to victims and survivors every day. They are the experts. We need to listen to them. These experts have asked for an emergency rent supplement to help victims access secure, safe housing during this crisis. This is a focused solution. Minister, I'm imploring you to reconsider the decision not to facilitate their request, to re-evaluate the decision to deny access to emergency rent supplements for people fleeing domestic violence. Of course, as the only female TD in Cork, I also feel obliged to raise the issue of women returning from maternity leave and not being able to access payments. But in the interest of reducing repetition in the chamber, I'll just say that I join other deputies in calling for immediate action on this absolutely outrageous and discriminatory discrepancy. Minister, people with disabilities and their families have been especially impacted by the COVID-19 emergency. Intersectional analysis shows us that social and health issues are felt disproportionately by minority groups, including those with disabilities. Support services, daycare centres and respite opportunities have all been impacted. Many people have found the disruption to routine and the lack of access to friends very distressing. Health issues accompanying some disabilities make it harder to recognise coronavirus, creating extra worry. People with disabilities can earn up to €120 a week without it affecting their allowance. Unfortunately, due to the devastating effects of the COVID-19 emergency on the hospitality sector in particular, many people with disabilities are unable to return to work. I have been contacted by constituents who say the loss of income has been compounded by the lack of access to a crucial social outlet, as well as the loss of structure to their day. On their behalf, Minister, I'm seeking reassurance from you that those on disability allowance who cannot return to work due to COVID-19 will be eligible for a supplementary, non-means tested payment to a maximum of €120 a week. I had another question in relation to clawbacks, but in light of the previous Dáil sitting today, I'd just like to say that I'm glad to hear that those on disability allowance or one-parent family payments who availed of the COVID-19 pandemic unemployment payment will not be subject to any so-called clawbacks in the future. Minister, last week I asked Minister Humphreys about workers' rights in meat processing plants. I highlighted the vulnerabilities of these and other workers during the COVID-19 emergency. Too often, migration, a reality in the life for millions of people, is described in negative terms. But the reality is, not only is Irish society richer because of migration, it has become an economic necessity. Migrants fill vital gaps in our labour markets. If we're happy for them to produce our food, work in our hospitals and care for our elderly, then we are obliged to ensure they are treated justly. We cannot ignore the hypocrisy of successive Irish governments championing the cause of the undocumented Irish in the US, while at the same time seeming to ignore the plight of our own undocumented workers. That said, I'd like to commend the Government on introducing a firewall during the COVID-19 emergency that ensured the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection would not share any information with the Department of Justice and Equality. As a result, all people who needed it, whether documented or undocumented, could apply for the hardship payments. This practice is common in many jurisdictions to ensure that migrants, a vulnerable population, can safely access healthcare, police and state services without fear of deportation. In that spirit, Minister, will you and the other relevant ministers ensure the continuation of the firewall for information sharing with the Department of Justice and Equality on social welfare payments for migrant workers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy, for your questions. Firstly, in relation to the issues that you raised there about domestic violence, and I'm absolutely aware of the great importance of the issue that you raise, and I know that this is something that Minister Flanagan across this period of COVID has treated very, very seriously, and he has done all he can to ensure those who are at risk or those who become victims of that awful crime are given as much support as they can. Now, you raised the issue there regarding engagement between representative bodies for victims of domestic violence and the Department of Social Protection. My understanding is that Minister Doherty has met a number of organisations who are very active in that area, and those meetings were satisfactory and did make progress. And I know as well that Minister Doherty is acutely aware of the issues that you're referring to. I unfortunately am not able to answer you in relation to the question about rent supplement because I wasn't involved, nor would I have been, should I have been, in the decision on that matter. But I will get an answer for the Deputy on that matter and respond back to you. In relation to the maternity issue that you raised there, Deputy, my plan is tomorrow to bring a proposal to Cabinet in relation to that matter. We did move with great speed in setting up the wage subsidy scheme, and after the wage subsidy scheme was set up and operational, I did become aware of this issue in relation to mothers who were going back to work who had been on maternity leave. My aim and objective is to find a way of bringing them onto the wage subsidy scheme and treating them absolutely fairly versus others who are on the wage subsidy scheme at the moment. It has taken some time to identify a way of doing that, Deputy, because of the way in which the legislation was drafted, and also because of equity issues that I have to be more broadly aware of. But I do aim to, with the support of Cabinet, deal with that issue tomorrow, and thank you for raising that with me in recent debates. In relation to the issue regarding the firewall, as you refer to it, between the Department of Justice and the Department of Employment and Social Affairs, I am well familiar with the issue that you raise of the undocumented in my own constituency, and I see at first hand two things. The first thing is the contribution that many make who are undocumented to our economy and to our society, but I also see the great difficulty they face because of how they originally did come into our country, the way that happened, but now the fact that many of them have been in Ireland for so long. It's good to hear.
Is it possible to keep the firewall up? Is that something the government is looking at doing outside of this emergency?
I can't tell you for now, because I'm not the Minister for Justice or the Minister for Social Affairs, but I was going to try and conclude to you that it is a matter that I'm glad to hear we're able to handle during the period of COVID, and I'll ask the Minister for Justice and Minister Doherty what the plans are for dealing with it as we move through this phase of COVID.
Thank you.